There is a rhythm to all things, a silent order woven into the fabric of existence. The tides do not resist the shore. They surrender to its embrace. The stars do not question their place in the night sky. They simply shine. And yet, we fragile, fleeting, uncertain, grasp at control as if the river of life could be clenched in our fists. But what if we released our grip? What if we trusted that even the storms were part of the song, that even the silence was a verse in the great unfolding symphony? To trust is not to stand idle, but to walk forward with the knowing that every path, every detour, every shadow is held within a greater design. So, breathe, let go. Surrender to the unseen hands that have always carried you. The story of your life was never written in fear. It was written in faith. And faith is the bridge between the unknown and the divine. Life will test you. It will shake you. It will throw storms your way when you least expect them. And in those moments, fear will whisper in your ear, telling you that you're alone, that you're not strong enough, that you don't have what it takes. But here's the truth. Fear is a liar. It's an illusion that keeps you from seeing what's actually in front of you. Because in every challenge, in every setback, in every dark night of the soul, there is something greater at work. We live in a world where uncertainty is the only certainty. Plans fall apart, relationships shift, doors close when we least expect them to. And when that happens, our natural instinct is to grasp for control, to try to fix, manage, and manipulate things to fit our idea of how life should be. But have you ever noticed that the more you try to control things, the more exhausted you become? The more anxious, the more frustrated, the more overwhelmed? That's because you were never meant to carry it all alone. Faith is the antidote to fear. Not just any faith, but the kind of trust that says, even when I don't understand, even when I don't see the way forward, I believe there is a purpose to all of this. That kind of trust shifts everything. It allows you to stop fighting battles that aren't yours to fight. It allows you to step out of survival mode and into a place of peace, knowing that you're being led, even when you don't have all the answers. Think about the biggest struggles you've faced in your life, the times when you thought you wouldn't make it through. Maybe it was a financial crisis, a loss, a failure that knocked the wind out of you. At the time, it felt impossible. But look at you now. You're still here. You've survived things you once thought would break you. And whether you realized it then or not, you were being carried. Oh, you were being guided. Fear makes you believe that you have to figure it all out on your own, that you have to hustle, strive, push, and force things into place. But trust, real trust, means surrendering that need for control. It means waking up every morning and saying, I may not know what today holds, but I know who holds today. It's a shift from fear-based living to faith-based living. And that shift changes everything. When you live in fear, your world shrinks. You make decisions from a place of anxiety. You hesitate when you should move forward. You cling to things that are no longer serving you. But when you trust, when you truly believe that there's a bigger plan at work, you stop playing small. You stop letting fear dictate your choices. You step into the unknown with confidence because you know you're not walking alone. This doesn't mean you won't face struggles. It doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy. But it does mean that when challenges come, you'll face them differently. You'll stop seeing obstacles as punishments and start seeing them as lessons. You'll stop resisting change and start embracing it as part of your growth. You'll stop fearing the unknown and start walking forward with faith. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped letting fear call the shots? What if, instead of worrying about what could go wrong, you started trusting that everything is unfolding exactly as it should? What if you believe deep down that even in the setbacks, there's a divine purpose? Because here's the truth. Faith isn't just about believing when things are easy. It's about standing firm when everything feels uncertain. It's about choosing trust over fear, even when fear feels like the only option. And when you do that, when you truly let go and trust, you step into a life that is bigger, bolder, and more powerful than you ever imagined. You are stronger than you think. You are being guided in ways you can't even see yet. And the moment you stop letting fear control you is the moment you step into the life you were meant to live. We all have this idea. This illusion that if we just work hard enough, think smart enough, plan well enough, we can control everything. We think we can map out every step, anticipate every challenge, avoid every mistake. But life doesn't work that way, does it? No matter how carefully you plan, no matter how much effort you put in, things still go sideways. People change. Opportunities slip through your fingers. The path you thought was a straight road turns into a winding detour you never saw coming. And that's where most people get stuck. They fight it. They resist. They cling so tightly to their plans, to their expectations, to their need for control that they miss what's actually happening. They miss the bigger picture. Because the truth is, the more you try to control everything, the more frustrated, anxious, and exhausted you become. The need for control isn't power, it's a prison. Think about how much time and energy people spend trying to force life to go their way. They obsess over outcomes, replaying worst-case scenarios in their minds. They chase after things that aren't meant for them. They hold on to relationships, jobs, and situations long after they've stopped serving them because letting go feels too uncertain. And yet the more they try to control, the more out of control they actually feel. Real strength isn't about forcing your way through life. It's about learning to surrender. I'll do in a way that says, I'll just sit back and hope things work out. It's choosing to release the need to micromanage every outcome and instead trust that there's a plan bigger than the one you're holding on to. It's understanding that even when things don't go your way, they're still going the right way. Look back at your own life for a moment. Think about the times you thought everything was falling apart. Maybe you lost a job, maybe a relationship ended, maybe a dream you poured your heart into didn't work out. At the time, it felt like failure. It felt like life was pulling the rug out from under you. But now, with a little distance, can you see it differently? Can you see how those moments redirected you? How they shaped you? How they made room for something better? Something you couldn't have planned for on your own? That's the power of surrender. That's the power of surrender. When you stop resisting, when you stop clinging to your own limited understanding, you make space for something greater to unfold. You allow life to move in ways you never expected. You start flowing with it instead of fighting against it. And when you do that, when you truly let go, you start to experience a level of peace and freedom that most people never find. But let's be real. Surrender isn't easy. It takes courage. It takes faith. It takes the willingness to step into the unknown without guarantees, without certainty, and still believe that you're being guided. It's about saying, I don't know exactly where this road leads, but I trust that I'm on the right path. And that kind of trust, that's when things start to shift. That's when you stop seeing obstacles as problems and start seeing them as part of the process. And that's when you stop holding on to what's familiar out of fear and start embracing the unknown. And because here's the truth. Every time you surrender, every time you let go of your need for control, you're making room for something greater. You're making room for growth, for breakthroughs, for opportunities that you never would have found if you were too busy holding on to what you thought was best. So ask yourself this, what are you still gripping onto? What outcome, what fear, what old story are you still trying to control? And what would happen if you finally let it go? Because the moment you do, the moment you release that weight, is the moment you finally step into the life you were meant to live. Pain is something we all try to avoid. It's uncomfortable, it's messy, and it can shake us to our core. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the pain you're experiencing isn't here to destroy you, but to shape you? What if the very thing you're fighting against is actually the thing that's meant to build you into the person you're supposed to become? Most people think that when things go wrong, when life knocks them down, when they lose something or someone when they fail, it means they're off track. They think it means they did something wrong. But pain isn't punishment. Pain is a signal. It's life trying to wake you up, trying to grow you, trying to push you towards something greater. Think about this. Every person you admire, every leader, every innovator, every person who's done something extraordinary with their life, they all have one thing in common. They've been through struggle and torch. They faced moments where they could have quit, moments where the world told them they weren't good enough, moments where they had to decide whether they were going to let their pain define them or refine them or refine them. And the difference between the ones who rise and the ones who stick. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's their mindset. It's the decision to use pain as fuel instead of an excuse. You see, when you face challenges, you have two choices. You can let them break you, or you can let them build you. You can sit in the suffering asking, why me? Why is this happening? Or you can shift your perspective and start asking, what is this here to teach me? How is this preparing me for something bigger? Because here's the truth. Nothing in your life is wasted. Not the heartbreak, not the failure, not the rejection, not the setbacks. Every single thing you've been through has the power to serve you if you allow it. If you choose to learn from it. If you choose to let it sharpen you instead of weaken you. Maybe it was losing someone you loved. Maybe it was struggling financially. Maybe it was failing at something you poured your heart into. At the time, it felt like the end. But now, looking back, can you see how that moment shaped you? Can you see how it forced you to grow in ways you never would have otherwise? There's a reason for that. Because pain, when used correctly, is one of the greatest teachers there is. It forces us to go deeper. It forces us to build resilience, to develop character, to tap into strength we didn't even know we had. It pushes us out of our comfort zones and forces us to become more than we were before. The problem is, most people spend their entire lives running from pain. They numb it. They distract themselves. They pretend it isn't there. But when you do that, you don't avoid the pain. You just delay the lesson. You keep yourself stuck in the same patterns, repeating the same mistakes, never growing, never evolving, never stepping into the life you were meant for. But the people who transform, the people who break through, they face their pain head on. They lean into it. They allow themselves to feel it, to learn from it, to use it as a tool for transformation. And that's what separates those who live small from those who live fully. Because at the end of the day, the question isn't whether or not you'll experience pain. You will. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you let it make you bitter, or will you let it make you better? Will you let it shut you down, or will you let it wake you up? The choice is yours. The pain you're feeling right now, it's not here to break you. It's here to build you into something greater, but only if you let it. Only if you decide right now that you will not let your struggles define you, that you will use them as stepping stones instead of roadblocks, that you will take everything life has thrown at you and turn it into fuel. Because when you stop fearing pain, when you stop running from it, when you embrace it as part of your journey, that's when everything changes. That's when you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the creator of your future. That's when you take back your power. There's a moment in life when we all stand at a crossroads, a moment when everything we thought we knew is shaken, when the plans we carefully laid out don't unfold the way we expected. And in that moment, there's a choice: cling to fear and uncertainty, or trust in something greater. Trust isn't just believing when everything is going right. Trust is what you do when everything is falling apart. It's easy to have faith when the road is clear, when the opportunities are lined up, when the money is flowing and the relationships are strong. But real trust, real faith, that's built in the waiting. It's built in the moments when the answers don't come right away. It's built when the path is unclear and you feel like you're walking in the dark, unsure of what's ahead. Most people live their entire lives trying to control every outcome. They grip onto certainty like it's their lifeline. They want guarantees. They want to know that if they take this step, everything will work out exactly as they planned. But that's not how life works. And deep down, we know it. Life is unpredictable. It moves in ways we don't always understand. And if we spend our days clinging to control, we end up exhausted, anxious, and constantly fighting against the flow of life itself. But here's the paradox. The moment you surrender the need to control everything is the moment you step into real power. Because trust isn't about passively waiting for life to happen to you. It's about showing up fully, doing everything you can, and then letting go of the outcome. It's about believing that even when you don't see the full picture, there is a greater plan unfolding. Think about a time in your life when things didn't go your way, a time when you faced disappointment, loss, or uncertainty. Maybe you didn't get the job, maybe the relationship didn't work out. Maybe you invested everything into something and it didn't turn out the way you hoped. In that moment, it probably felt like failure. But now, looking back, can you see how that moment redirected you? Can you see how what felt like an ending was actually the beginning of something greater? That's the power of trust. When you let go of fear and step forward with faith, doors open in ways you never expected. Opportunities show up that you couldn't have planned for. You meet people who change the course of your life. And what once seemed like a setback turns out to be a setup for something greater than you ever imagined. But the truth is, trust is a choice. It's not something that happens automatically. It's something you have to practice every single day. When challenges come, when doubts creep in, when fear whispers that you're not enough or that things won't work out, you have to remind yourself that even when you can't see the whole staircase, you can still take the next step, because life isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to be experienced. It's meant to be lived with an open heart, an open mind, and an unshakable trust that no matter what happens, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. So the question is, will you trust? Will you step forward even when you don't have all the answers? Will you choose to believe that there is something greater at work in your life? The moment you do, the moment you release control and embrace trust is the moment everything starts to change. There's a pattern in life that most people don't recognize, a force that's always at work, shaping our experiences, guiding our steps, and teaching us lessons that sometimes we don't even realize we're learning. And that force is resistance. Think about it. Every time you've tried to step into something bigger, every time you've tried to grow, to evolve, to push past your limits, what happens? Resistance shows up. It comes in the form of fear, of doubt, of obstacles that seem to appear out of nowhere. It whispers in your ear, who do you think you are? You're not ready. What if you fail? What if you get hurt? And for most people, that's enough to stop them in their tracks. They take it as a sign to turn back, to stay where it's safe. But what if resistance isn't a sign to stop? What if it's actually proof that you're on the right path? Because the truth is, resistance doesn't show up when you're doing nothing. It doesn't appear when you're standing still. Only rises when you're pushing forward. And that means if you're facing resistance right now, if you feel like everything is working against you, you might just be on the edge of something extraordinary. Most people don't get that. They see struggle as a problem. They see obstacles as reasons to quit. But the ones who truly succeed in life, the ones who reach their highest potential, understand something different. They know that resistance is part of the process. They know that pressure is what creates diamonds, that fire is what strengthens steel. They don't back down when things get hard. They lean in, because here's what happens when you push the resistance. On the other side of it, you become stronger. You develop resilience. You gain confidence that can't be shaken. You start to realize that you are capable of so much more than you ever believed. And once you experience that kind of breakthrough, once you prove to yourself that you can overcome, you stop being afraid of challenges. You start welcoming them, because you know they're just another stepping stone on the way to your greatest self. So let's bring this back to you. Where in your life are you feeling resistance right now? Maybe it's in your career. Maybe it's in your relationships. Maybe it's in the way you see yourself, the way you talk to yourself when no one else is listening. Wherever it is, I want you to stop seeing that resistance as a problem. Stop seeing it as something that's holding you back, and instead start seeing it as an invitation to rise, an invitation to become the person you were meant to be. Because the truth is, you were never meant to stay the same. You were never meant to live a small, comfortable, predictable life. You were meant to grow. You were meant to expand. You were meant to face resistance and break through it. Not just for yourself, but for the people who are watching you. For the people who will one day look at your story and say, because they didn't quit, I won't quit either. That's the power you have. That's the influence you carry. But it only happens if you choose to keep going. It only happens if you refuse to let resistance win. So when it shows up, and it will, when the doubts creep in, when the fear tries to pull you back, remember this. Resistance is not the enemy. It's the test, it's the proving ground. It's the thing that separates the people who live average lives from the people who create extraordinary ones. And if you're willing to push through it, if you're willing to trust that every challenge, every obstacle, every setback is actually setting you up for something greater, then there is no limit to what you can become. Life has a way of testing you. It doesn't send you warnings. It doesn't give you a manual. It just throws you into the fire, and you have two choices. You can resist, complain, and fight against it, or you can lean in, trust, and let it shape you. Most people spend their lives avoiding discomfort. They run from uncertainty. They cling to what's familiar, even when it's not serving them. They stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and mindsets that keep them small. And why? Because it's safe. Because the unknown is terrifying. Because stepping into something new requires trust. But trust is not just a word, it's a way of living. It's waking up every day and deciding that no matter what happens, no matter how unpredictable life gets, you will not shrink. You will not run. You will stand firm in the belief that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. That's not always easy. Sometimes trust feels impossible. When you lose someone you love, when you pour everything into a dream and it doesn't work out, when the doors keep closing and you start to wonder if you were ever meant to walk through them in the first place, those are the moments when trust is hardest. But those are also the moments when it matters the most. Because here's the truth. Everything you're going through right now is shaping you for what's coming next. Every challenge, every setback, every moment that makes you question whether you can keep going, it's not here to break you. It's here to build you. It's here to prepare you for something greater than you can imagine. You see, life is not random. Nothing is wasted. The struggle, the pain, the moments that feel unfair, they are all part of a bigger picture. A picture that you can't always see in the moment. But if you look back on your life, if you connect the dots, you'll realize that every time you thought you were being held back, you were actually being redirected. Every time you thought you were being broken, you were actually being rebuilt. So the question is, can you trust the process? Can you let go of the need to control every outcome? Can you believe that even in the waiting, even in the struggle, something incredible is unfolding for you? Because the people who trust are the ones who rise. The ones who refuse to quit, even when they don't see the whole picture, are the ones who eventually step into everything they were meant for. They don't let fear dictate their path. They don't let doubt steal their destiny. They trust. They move forward, and they win. And if you can do that, if you can decide right now that no matter what happens, you will trust the process, you will look back one day and realize that every step, every challenge, every delay was leading you exactly where you were meant to be.